Good morning. Welcome to this edition of the Rich Urban Show, where we present news and views from God's point of view. I'm very happy to have Donna Joy on the show today. She's running for Board of Education here in Jefferson County. So please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Donna Joy, running for Board of Ed in Jefferson County. I'll just share with you why I feel like I'm the most qualified. Let's see, I taught special ed for 15 years. I have a master's degree in special ed. So I feel that our current school board we need help with the special ed, following special ed federal, state guidelines. So I could be a big help there. I have a PhD in educational measurement, statistics, research, and evaluation. And that is necessary on the board to follow sound research using logic, making research-based decisions, interpreting data, interpreting graphs. When I've seen some of the board meetings I've been to, and the superintendent can explain some of the things to the board, but the board seems to be dependent on the superintendent's explanation. And so the board needs to increase in that area. No better way to say that.
All right.
Okay, so let's see. I have taught math for 30 years, math and special ed, and at the high school, college level. And I also worked as a bookkeeper when I was going through college. So I can look at budgets and financial reports quickly and easily analyze, look for errors, find gaps or ways to save money. I am certified in all main subjects, including special ed. I supervise student teachers and principals' dissertations, so I know the latest research on administration and supervision, and also, the needs of new teachers.
Okay. Well, let me interject one question. So, as a Board of Education member, what do you think, your most crucial role is? What would you say the most important role of the Board of Education is?
Well, for me or in general?
Either way, however you'd like to state it.
Well, right now, I feel like our board needs a change. We need some new ideas and new skill sets on the board. So that's the way I see for myself. So I think I could bring that. I'm not part of I'm not part of the good old boy club, and I'm not part of any groups. I'm an independent. I do what's best for the kids. My motivation is education, improving the school system. As a citizen, I feel that it's my moral and ethical responsibility, given all my extensive background in education, to see what I could do to help, to apply myself in that way.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned, I know you had a background in special education. I noticed that's something you've been teaching. That's on your resume or on your information on your website. So what are the most critical areas in the schools right now? Or they're maybe the three most critical areas you think in Jefferson County? I know you mentioned special ed. Is that one of them? Can you talk about
Yeah,
that?
special ed we have a serious problem in special ed. We stay out of compliance. So the school system gets sued often. They're not meeting, and so we lose money, but we're not addressing the needs of the kids that that really need help. There's a lot of reasons for that, but education and really requiring that we have a complete overhaul of the special ed program in Jefferson County schools.
So
I believe that's needed.
Okay. Is our parents, I know in some jurisdictions, have some experience, parents have sued what are not, I don't know if they call it suing, but they filed complaints legally against school system for inadequate education, and then they'll ask for a placement out of the system privately, and the school has to pay for it. Is that something that's happening around here, or that's not an issue in this area?
Yeah, that happens too. We have more basic problems. So, I don't want to sound too negative, but the truth is that this current administration and school board seems to want to minimize the number of students receiving services because they feel that it's a financial burden. And I'm saying that because I was in one of the court hearings and heard one of the board members explain that it was a burden to the school system. So what some school systems will do is they'll try to minimize the number. That way they don't have to supply them with special ed teachers or other services. So that's illegal, and we need to stop that. Right now, if a parent calls and says, my child has a disability, I want to get my child tested, the question will be, is your child failing? No, he's not failing. Well, honey, we can't help him if he's not failing. We don't have special ed services. We don't give them to kids unless they're failing. And that's illegal. That's not the basis for an IEP or extra help.
Right.
So, I mean, that's just one example. There's a lot of different reasons why parents complain. They're just repeatedly turned away. The people in charge don't know federal laws. That person that gives that answer, she's the director of special ed in the county. And I mean, she gave that answer to me 3-4 years ago, and she still does it, so I know that. And another administrator, another high school, when asked to explain dyslexia, she didn't know what it was, and she's the coordinator for special ed in the high school. Those are serious problems. So I'm talking more basic than you have educated, wealthy families who just want to get extra for their kids. It's not that. We have kids that have severe problems that aren't getting the help they need. So
Yeah,
I didn't want to
see what you
blow
mean.
up. So
if parents request like an evaluation, I know there's some time limit under the IDEA, I think it's called. Do they get it timely?
No, not always. And so that's another grounds for a lawsuit. So the school system doesn't know basic. Okay, I'll give you one example where the school system, it cost over $50,000, and it was because of a simple law. If a parent requests an evaluation of their child, legally, the school system has to either say, yes, we will do this, or they'll say no, and then you have to have a due process hearing. So you can't just say no without a due process hearing. It's just that not everybody is up to par on federal regulations. So that would be one thing that I would want to see changed, that everybody that has anything to do with special ed services, that everybody be given the adequate information that's available to everybody. It's not a mystery, but it has to be enforced. And when you have the philosophy that it's a burden, then it's not going to be enforced, following the special ed requirements.
Yeah, it seemed like
I could talk a lot about it. This is one of my passions, so I could go on and on just about special ed and issues with special ed, if you like. But I was going to answer the two other problems. You said to give you three.
Go ahead.
You do that? Okay. So another problem is the maintenance. Every school that I've been in, the roof leaks. There's the heating and air conditioning problem. And then, we have this whole Shepherdstown education complex that has to be built. The land's been sitting there for a few years now. So, just to maintain what we have and to get it to where it's safe, the buildings, and there's a track at Jefferson High School. The track field needs to be fixed. So that's another basic problem. The third basic problem is the break in trust between the public and the school board and administration. Came about because there wasn't full disclosure, and there hasn't been, about a lot of things. So, but it blew up, and so the county's been divided. So that needs to be mended. So we need to stress transparency, accessibility, and accountability.
Right. Well, one of my neighbors I was chatting with, he mentioned, and I'm not super knowledgeable about, but that he didn't think the school board should be spending X many dollars on the Rockwell thing. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about, or are you talking about other things?
I was talking about even before that, but that's all part of, that's one of the issues. So the first problem was they didn't ask the public, how do you feel about this pilot? Should we go along with it? So, so a lot of people lost trust because of that, because they found out it was a secret deal. Well, then there was another group that lost trust, because then they took what they claim, we don't have money for special ed to begin with, and they took that and used it for lawyers to fight, when it was a dead end fight, because they have property already. The argument the school system used was illegal. And that's what I'm saying. They don't know basic laws about special ed. We have worked for over 50 years in this country to get special ed children to be included, in the regular school system, because they used to take all the special need kids and either throw them in the basement, and they would eat lunch at the end of the day, and they would end up cleaning the cafeteria, eat by themselves. They would isolate, and these are disabilities such as a child's gifted, but they have a language disability. The range of disabilities, they would just put all the kids together. And this was what Jefferson County School Board was suggesting. I mean, they put these numbers together and said, we have this many special needs kids in our, in the county. Well, they didn't differentiate which type of need. So you're left to assume that their idea was to just take the kids with any kind of disability and put them in this education complex, for special needs kids. I mean, that was my interpretation. And I went to the hearing to try to understand what their intentions were. So anyway, that's illegal. That would put us backwards. Special ed rights activists, they want kids included as much as possible. And that's part of PL 94-142, the laws regarding special ed and inclusion. So,
okay.
Yeah, that's just one thing. And then, it just doesn't sit right when you use the population that has been victimized the most, the special ed children, the children with special needs. They're the ones that are suffering the most because of this system not getting their needs met. And so then they're being exploited and used to try to gain sympathy. Suddenly it didn't work for me, because I had been through trying to get these changes made with the special ed system. So that really bothered me, and a lot of other people, the money that they spent, but just to lie. I mean, it wasn't true. Everybody knows it wasn't true, but I mean, most people, I get so passionate, and I don't want to sound negative, but
Right.
So it did cause a divide in the county. So we need to work to mend that so that we can trust the board.
Okay. All right. Let me ask a question that's close to my heart. So,
Okay.
I'm working in the field of, sexual health education, specifically absence centered. So do you think, like, in that kind of area, sexual health education should the expected standard for school age children be like not to have sex before marriage. That was 2 decades ago. That was stated, in the so-called Title V funding. That's the expected standard for school age children. Wait to have sex, till you're married. Is that a good idea to have that kind of whatever standard? What do you think?
Absolutely. That would be my request for a standard. Whether that, the outside world has influence, but the goal of school should be to focus on education and children's learning. You don't want them to be encouraged to do other sorts of outside activities that are going to distract them from the goal of learning. So that's part of it. But for health reasons, they're not ready to be parents at that young of an age. They're not ready for the responsibilities and all the changes that happen when you're involved in a romantic relationship. So, that's what I teach my children, and doesn't mean it always happens, but in the world, and there's a lot of influences.
Absolutely. But at least setting a standard. Okay, well, that's clear. Yeah. So you mentioned, I noticed you've been working on getting a financial literacy requirement. Do you want to say anything about that?
Did I tell you about that?
I saw it, no, but I read that I was reading your blog, so I saw that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wrote stuff a while back, but so actually I just started. I was actually, when we started, I was typing something up about that. Yeah, I'm really passionate about students learning some basic practical skills. Again, going back to some basic education. When they graduate from high school, they already know how to read and do adding and subtracting by the time they're in high school. If we could give them one skill that would help them in their lives, I think it's personal finance. And people think that, oh, it's just balancing a checkbook. It's mortgages, interest, estate planning, school loans, car loans, bonds, stocks, IRAs, taxes. There's so much involved, and most adults don't know about those things. If we could teach kids these things, I think it would help them to save money, learning about compound interest and investing now a little bit while they're in high school, so that in 30 years they might have something. They don't have to be dependent on the system. So
I would think. Well, go ahead. Could I interject with you? Yeah. So did that used to be the kind of thing? I know you're mentioning that just a couple weeks in civics isn't good enough, but did that kind of thing used to be or is included in like what used to be called home economics? I don't know if they're still offering that kind of. What is it called now? You know what I'm saying?
No, home economics is just about setting a table, cooking, meal planning.
I see.
That's not about anything to do with personal finance. They might get into a budget for how much money you have to go grocery shopping, but no, that's not personal finance. It's never been a requirement, and I believe that is a skill that all students need, because it's not an elective in life, and it should be required.
Yeah, it seems logical. I agree with that.
Yeah, that should be a nonpartisan issue.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask one other thing. So like with the current situation with the whole COVID-19, we know that has, caused cancellation of the school year and so on. So what I want to ask is, as school is resuming, hopefully, hopefully in the fall, I guess now, I noticed like the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, said, oh, children should wear masks. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it seems like a highly dubious suggestion. I mean, well, yeah, that that kind of idea? What do you think about, or in general, how is this whole thing affecting things? Should it be having so much effect, or do you have some opinions around that area?
Well, I feel like there's too much of the unknown. We don't know because every other day they change the story. For me, I make sure that I wear a mask when I go in public because I'm being polite, but it's very difficult to breathe. And I don't think it's safe for everybody. I believe that hopefully pretty soon we'll have some more, research-based information from the CDC, but I just, it's too controversial. We don't know enough about it yet. And then as far as going back to school, I know that the board has already decided that they will offer both face-to-face and online options. So that may be a way to meet the needs of the varying views on it.
Wow, interesting. So there'll
Yeah.
be like it'll be almost like, so when you say it'll be almost like sort of like homeschooling, or not really?
Well, I think it's more for the higher level kids, and so they haven't shared any details. I read about that in the newspaper, so um, I can imagine, tell you what it might be, and I can tell you what it should look like because I've taught online for 19 years. I actually wrote a book about online instruction, and there's so many things you can do to help kids, especially kids with special needs, with online instruction, but you have to do it right. And right now what they're doing is something they slap together without anybody really knowing anything about the research and online instruction.
Right.
I mean, we have to use best practices. I teach at some universities that are, they pay to go there, and they want the best. And just basic, one basic idea is to use the platforms like Blackboard, eCollege, Sakai. The colleges use those. You have the video of the instructor. You can go to that at any time. You have a transcript of what's been said in case you need to read it. You can, if you can't keep up with the teacher, you can pause and go back. Everything that you need should be in that class. The syllabus, what's due when. It really cuts down on the teacher never told me, or the teacher saying, yeah, I assigned this, you just forgot. No, it's right there, so you have a record.
Okay, I can see that. All right.
Yeah.
Well, as we're moving, yeah, toward conclusion here, like, how would you, like, for the voters, so they can vote? Correct me if I'm wrong, because I know it. Like I was reading on your site, it can be a little confusing. So you can vote for 3 people, and I know there's some limit if there were too many people from one district, but basically, barring that, the top 3 people will win, right? And so also tell us, you can comment on that, but also tell us, how would you differentiate yourself from your opponent, 10 or so, or however many about opponents? What should people know why they should vote for you versus, other people?
Okay. Well, so yeah, you can vote for up to 3 people. You can vote for 1, 2, or 3 from any district. It doesn't matter if you live in their district or if they live in your district. But no more than 2 people can be on the board from any one district. So does that clarify?
Yeah, I think so. So should that happen, then it would go to the next vote getter, I assume.
Yeah. So for example, Shepherdstown, there's 5 people running from Shepherdstown district. One of them's really lives in Harpers Ferry, but they put her in the Shepherdstown district. Magisterial district versus another district. Anyway, so if the top 3 people, the top 3 vote getters are all from Shepherdstown, only those top 2 will get a seat. They'll have to go to the next highest from a different district.
Got it. That's clear. Okay. So as people look to vote on June 9th, and like as we're saying, the school board will be elected on June 9th. There's like no that is the election, final election. Why should people vote for you, differentiating you from the other candidates?
Mhm. Well, I'm the most qualified. I'm a career educator. I've been teaching for 33 years. I don't have any personal ties to several board members. You know, they have a lot of old family and connections with businesses, and you know, I'm wanting to be on the board to help. And out of like I said, my ethical and moral responsibility to help, I have the skills that could help. I have more skills that the school board needs than, you know, other candidates, which is unfortunate because we don't have. It looks like we have 11 people, but we don't really have 11 people. 3 of them aren't even showing up for forums, you know. So so that's one thing. I'm the most qualified. I'm passionate, and I didn't just, you know, move here 2 weeks ago, you know, a year ago, and think it's a cool thing for one issue. I have several issues, and they're all related to education and helping the children. And I have a track record of helping the school system. I've been teaching here for 8 years, and the whole time I've been here, I have put my job and my reputation on the line, dealing with issues such as the school system has a policy, or had it until hopefully they took it down after I spent a whole year, you know, dealing with the state employee grievance board to get that fixed. But they had a policy that allowed them to hire long-term subs over certified teachers. You have a list of certified teachers applying for these jobs. They don't even get interviews.
Wow.
Meanwhile, and this was a policy. They'll tell the public, you know, it's all we can get. And people assume that because, yeah, it is hard to get teachers when they leave for higher pay. But that's not the whole story. So I've worked very hard to get a lot of policies changed. I mean, I could spend the next 2 days explaining the issues that I've dealt with on my own, you know. So I didn't just, I'm not temporary, you know, I'm here to
Okay.
stay, and I will always be trying to improve the schools wherever I'm living, you know, my community, because that's my forte.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to come on today. We'll put this up on video and podcast, and hopefully many voters will watch it, and they can make an informed choice. They can vote for. Remember, you can vote for 3 people, up to 3 or 3. On June 9th. So yeah, thank you for coming on. I'm your host, Richard Urban, and thank you for joining us. And we will see you next time.